Despite being one of the world's most historic clubs, at the minute, things aren't going too well for Ajax. Last season, they found themselves finishing outside of the top 4 in the Eredivisie, and the season before that, failing to mount a title challenge. This season hasn't started the best either, and after an underwhelming transfer window, it's looking pretty bleak. But that is the perfect time for me to step in. I've got 5 years to try and rebuild Ajax and take them to Champions League glory. Now, despite their recent failures on the pitch, Ajax is still a club with a lot going for them. Amazing facilities, and of course they're known for their brilliant youth academy, and their team already has some stars within it. Croatian international defender Josip Sutalo is one of the best in the league. Recent signing Wout Weghorst is a good option up front, whilst Jordan Henderson is an experienced body in the midfield. But there's some of the ready-made stars in the team, but as we all know, Ajax have plenty of great youngsters. Jarel Hato is the crown jewel of those academy players recently produced, a fantastic young defender. Norwegian midfielder Sivert Mannsverk has got huge promise, and whilst he is on loan at Wolves this season, Carlos Borgs could turn into a fantastic winger. And because of all those great players, despite the fact that they haven't been doing well in real life, the game still predicts them to be the top dogs in the division, favourites to win the title, with PSV breathing right down our necks. And there is also a pretty hefty budget of £30 million to spend should we want to try and invest in the team. So fingers crossed within a couple of years we can start to dominate the Eredivisie again, and then after that we can hopefully push for some Champions League glory. Now, this is a club that I have rebuilt a few times in the past, and it doesn't always end up being as easy as that, but fingers crossed with the right transfers in season 1 we can get this club moving in the right direction. And in the first transfer window, I was actually able to make quite a few changes to this squad that I think could take us to an extra level. Firstly, our biggest loss was Steven Berghuis, whose name I've definitely butchered there, but he has moved over to Saudi Arabia, age 32. He was one of our best players, but when they came in for him, he wanted to leave, and he only had a year left on his deal and had told me that he was not going to stay. So it was either cash him on in now or let his contract run out and lose him for free. And then there was a bunch of players that I've loaned out, so I'm going to quickly run through them. All of these are young players with a lot of promise. We've got the striker Julian Rijkoff, young defender Ahmetican Kaplan, Belgian centre-back Ethan Butera, and young academy product David Koloko. Kian Fitzjim has also moved on for the season, as has Ryan Bunida, and a young goalkeeper that was at the club that I've loaned out called Dayant Ramaj. Now, all of those guys are players that hopefully can become first-team players, but the chances of all of them doing that are pretty slim, so I'm loaning them out, hoping that they'll do well, and then maybe 1 or 2 of them can come back and influence the first team. But speaking of the first team, we have some new additions. Coming in goal is Marcin Bulka. Our current goalkeeper was 40 years of age. His name was Pasveer, and whilst he is still at the club, I did not want him to be on number 1. So when Bulka was available, I thought he'd be a great pickup. Age 24 from Nice. Now, in general, I am going to try and aim for these younger players to improve the squad. We will need some experience as well, but I will have the rough idea of continuing Ajax's legacy of developing young talents and moving them on for a big profit. And the final bit of transfer news in a very busy first transfer window was Facundo Torres arriving as a new Ajax player, available to play anywhere alongside that front line. The Uruguayan 24-year-old comes in as one of our best for 9.5 million, rising to 10.5 from the MLS, and he's really being seen as our Berghuis replacement. Obviously we sold him on, and now we have a younger player who, fingers crossed, can leave an even bigger legacy at the club. But outside of those transfers, another exciting thing we're doing with this Ajax squad is completely changing the way they play. As you can see, I've gone for a pretty brazen tactic. It's a little bit crazy compared to what I normally do, but what I've tried to do is make a Johan Cruyff style tactic, and I looked at plenty of different ones online and kind of combined them all into one tactic that I thought could work. There's no special instructions on all of the players, as you can see, that's going to make them really overpowered, but just as a general formation, this is what I'm going for. We've got a sweeper keeper at the back, 3 defenders, and then there's nothing really in these wide areas until you get to the wing spot, because we have a 3-man midfield, a 3-man attack, and then a forward line led by Brian Brobby, who is supposedly considered our best striker. But speaking of our best striker, let's run through what is currently our best team. In goal, I think realistically, we're looking at Marcin Bulka, who you've met. Daniel Rugani is in on loan for the season, the Italian 30-year-old, alongside Sutalo and Hato, who you've seen already. We've got Kenneth Taylor, another very young, promising player in our team, who's hopefully going to lead that midfield, alongside Jordan Henderson, and then we've got Van den Boomen, who is a 29-year-old Dutchman Dutchman, who hopefully can be a big player for us. There's then Facundo Torres and Steven Bergwijn. Now this is the only fault of a transfer update I've got on. Everyone else has moved as expected, but Steven Bergwijn is still at the club. In real life, he's moved to Saudi Arabia. So what I'm going to do, as soon as we get the first initial offer in for him, I'll let him go at whatever point that is. Once those options on the pitch, supposedly our best left winger is then Jadon Banel, who is a 19-year-old Dutchman with a lot of promise, and then Brian Brobby leads a line. Age 22, our number 9 is someone that could end up being an elite level striker if we get things right. Now the game doesn't seem to hate our signings because we are still considered title favourites here. Fingers crossed we can live up to that expectation, but as we know in real life, it hasn't gone that well. So let's see what we can do in our first season, and then from there we can really kick on and start making this team our own. And it's safe to say our first year here at Ajax has been a pretty mixed bag. In fact, if we didn't win a certain game that I'm going to speak about in a minute, we were told that we were going to be sacked. So that gives you an idea of how the season might have gone. And like I say, it was a bit of a weird season. This bold attacking tactic that we were playing led to us getting great wins like this one, where we beat AZ Alkmaar 4-0. And whilst we were scoring a lot of goals this season, we were also conceding lots too, and it led to some big losses like this one against Feyenoord, where they dispatched us with a 4-0 victory at their stadium. So our league performance was certainly mixed, and we'll talk more about that in a second, but this year, in terms of a European expedition, we were in the Conference League, and we did manage to make a semi-final against Hoffenheim, which we stormed through and made a final against our first real test, which was Chelsea. Now, because of our style of play, when we did face off against any big teams this season, we did tend to struggle, but we managed to give the Blues a good game, getting an early goal through Hilnerson before making it 2 before half-time. Steven Bergwijn, a player that we will sell eventually, crossing the ball in to find Taylor, who headed home for the 2-0 advantage. But Chelsea obviously have some real quality, and our lack of defensive ability led to Nkunku pulling a goal back. And from there, Chelsea completely dominated. They finished the match with 22 shots. We only had 6, but thanks to a man-of-the-match performance from Marcin Bulka, the former Chelsea man, we managed to lift the Europa Conference League. And whilst it might not be the trophy we're trying to win in this rebuild, it's definitely a good start. But what wasn't so good was our league performance, where we finished in 4th place, 66 points, which is a whole 22 points away from the eventual winners PSV. We do get Europa League football because we did win the Conference League, but we won't be playing Champions League. As mentioned, we were pretty good in the attacking sense. We scored 81 goals, which was the second best in the league, but defensively, we conceded 45, which was 25 goals more than the champions PSV, who smashed it at the back. We did have some star performers this season though, Kenneth Taylor being one of our best with 21 goals, playing the majority of games for our team. Then we had Brian Brobby scoring 41, which is incredible. Facundo Torres with 17, and youngster Van Axel Dongen managed to score quite a few goals too. His return was 11. Hilnerson was a surprise package. The midfielder managed to bag 18 goals, even though he probably isn't one of our best in that area, but that's always good to see. And now we head into season 2 with a pretty hefty transfer budget of 26 million and 100 grand of wages to spend. So we really can now start getting stuck in, move some players on, bring our own players in, and hopefully turn this Ajax team into champions so we can start looking ahead towards that Champions League title. And this transfer window was a pretty busy one. In fact, the board told us before we could spend any money going forward, we're always going to have to sell players first. They want us to operate with a negative transfer budget model. Now that's going to be tough to navigate, but we'll do what we can. But before I show you those transfers, I'm going to ask you guys if you could do me a huge favor. If you've watched the videos, you know what's coming right now. If you could smash the like button, it really does help us here on the channel. Subscribe as well if you haven't already. We're now on 39k subs, so we're closing in on 40,000, which is the next target for the channel. So thank you to anybody who does that. Make sure you comment down below what rebuild you want to see next. Each one we do is based on your suggestions. And finally, you can check out my Patreon, linked in the description, if you want access to the save files from these rebuilds and every single one that we've ever done through season 1 all the way through to season 5. So you can jump in after we finish or jump in halfway through and try and do a better job. And at the same time, you help support me, which is massively appreciated. But with all that being said, let's get into the transfers. And there was quite a lot lot of them, so let me try and run through them as quickly as possible. Leaving first was Yuri Bass, a young 22-year-old who just didn't have the potential to go all the way, so I've moved him on to Sunderland in the Championship for only about 500k. Wout Weghorst has also left the club. He joined for a big fee before we could really do anything about it, and now I've decided to move him on because he just did not play for us. 3 games all season, all of them off the bench, so we've sold him for a very small fee of 650,000. Third choice goalkeeper Jay Gorta has also moved on, with Bulka at the club and also Ramaj, who we loaned out last season, coming back. There was no point keeping Gorta here, so I've let him move on to Hertha Berlin for 675,000, and there's also the option, if he does eventually leave them, that we'll get some of the profit. Bertrand Traore is another recent signing from Ajax. In this current window, they picked him up for free, but he's not a player that I really wanted to use, and he didn't really play much at all, so we've sold him to Salzburg for just over $1 million. Not really great fees for any of these guys, but it was a little bit of a clear out window, just getting rid of the bulk of the players we had. Kian Fitzjim was loaned out last season and didn't do great when he did, so we've decided to move him on permanently as well. 1.6 million, again, future clauses in there if he does move on, and we make a profit off of that. Another Bundesliga club picking up one of our players, Owen Vindel, was one of the unfortunate people that just did not fit our new tactic, so he's moved on. He only played 8 times last season, all off the bench, so we've sold him to Hoffenheim for 2.5 mil. Definitely a better player than that, but we obviously don't play a left back, so that kind of makes him struggle. Another youngster that just wasn't quite making the cut that I've moved on is Benjamin Tahirovic. The Bosnian 22-year-old has moved on to Utrecht for 3 million, spent last season there on loan, did okay, and he goes to them. Again, if he does move, we'll make a profit. One unfortunate loss was Jadon Benel, who we saw last season as one of our best players from the academy. He eventually got loaned out to Twente, where he did pretty well, but then Chelsea came in and offered 7.5 million. I actually turned down the first bid, but then he said he wanted to leave if it reached a certain value, and Chelsea reached it, so then he's upset if he doesn't go, so it made sense just to move him on, and if he does eventually come good, we'll make some money off of that too. Then there was Chuba Akpom, also leaving for Hertha Berlin in Germany. 8.5 million quid was the fee for him. And then finally, Van Axel Dongen was another one that I didn't want to lose, but then Liverpool came in and he said that he wanted to go there. He had a really good year for us last year, but obviously he wanted to move to England. It's a 9 million transfer that could rise to 14, and they've also given him back to us on loan for the season at no charge, which is obviously a nice benefit. We'll get him for another season, and hopefully he'll do big things out in Merseyside. But it's not all bad news. I think some of our incoming business has been pretty good. The first signing was a really cheap one, Yosuke Ideguchi. We've picked him up from Vissel Kobe in Japan, where we've paid a fee of £1.8 million to sign him, which I think is a pretty good deal for someone that covers us pretty well in that midfield. I've also spent £15 million bringing in Fermin from Barcelona. The 22-year-old continues a connection between Ajax and Barca that stems back to the Johan Cruyff days. He can play anywhere in that front three, also central midfield if needed, and we have picked him up for 15 million, rising to 16.5, and fingers crossed he can be one of the team's best players. But then our final signing was Luka Sukic. The Croatian international is a midfield beast, and we've picked him up from Sociedad in Spain, where he played a lot of games last season and did fairly well. We've paid 11 million quid for him. He's still only 22, a lot of room to get better, and he is going to be a fantastic midfielder for us, I'm sure. Now, because of how many goals we shipped last season, I have changed the tactic a little bit. I've changed some of the roles to hopefully help us be a little more defensively solid, and this is what is now considered our best 11 in only our second season here. Marcin Bulka comes into the team alongside Sutalo, Rensch and Hato. Rensch we haven't really looked at yet, but he is an Ajax Academy product who looks really good in that centre-back position. Then we've got Kenneth Taylor, Mansverk and Sukic in the midfield, a very young midfield three, with Torres, Fermin and Steven Bergwijn alongside Brian Brobby. I said I would move Bergwijn on as soon as I got the option. It was only a loan option, mind you, from Leipzig, but I took it anyway to keep my word. It's a £5 million loan, and there's an option for them to buy him for 14 million afterwards, should they want to. One to keep an eye on, Nasi Univar has came back from a loan out at Espanyol in Spain, and looks to be a pretty good player actually, so I think he will play quite a lot for us. And of course, Carlos Borges is also back after his year at Wolves. They didn't sign him. I don't know if there was an option for them too, but he's going to be a lovely addition to the team that would have been nice to have last season. Season preview wise, we have dropped to second place predicted though. Some of the sales have clearly affected us. PSV are expected to win the title again. They are favourites this year, but we're going to try and change that. Our Ajax team is ready. We head into our second season now with a Conference League under our belt, some new players and some younger players coming up from the academy as well, who hopefully can influence this first team and maybe, just maybe, guide us to that title. And in Season 2, we've had a lot happen. There's plenty to cover, so let's start off with European football, where this year, of course, we were playing in the Europa League. Where having defeated Sturm Graz in the round of 16, we came up in a tie against Sevilla in the quarter-finals, which we won 1-0 at home, which meant we had the lead heading over to Spain. But Sevilla are, of course, a very experienced team in the Europa League, and they equalised after 13 minutes. We did manage to hold out from that point, though, until the 60th minute, when Chidera went into the box, opened himself up and put it past Bulka. At this stage we were 2-1 down, but we weren't giving in. Mansver confirming, linking up in the box to create a chance for Taylor, who hit a shot on his left foot past the goalkeeper to equalise the match. And that took us all the way to extra time, where in the 107th minute, after all of our efforts, Suso went down the left hand side of the pitch, played a cross in, Firmino headed home, and that meant we came crashing out of the Europa League in the quarter final. But thankfully there was another cup competition that we were doing pretty well in, because we made the Dutch Cup final, and it was only one goal. It was a Torres penalty, and whilst that was a pretty underwhelming way to win the trophy, we had won it. We have got a Dutch Cup under our belt as well as a Conference League. But how was the Eredivisie this season? Well, we were much better and we managed to deliver the title. Now it must be said, PSV were a lot worse this year. In previous years 79 points wouldn't have been enough for us. 5 losses, some pretty poor ones too. 3-0 away loss to NAC Brada being the worst one. 4 draws across the course of the season, but we did a little bit better than PSV, better than Feyenoord, and even though there was only 3 points in it, we're not going to complain. We have got back on the top of the Eredivisie, we have won the title, and there was a big shift this season. If I go to stages here, you'll see it. If I can just click this button, there you go. You can see that against, we conceded 31 this season, much better than last year, and also scored 88. So we managed to balance out the attack and the defence a little bit more this year, which led to our success. And speaking of things leading to our success, I think a lot of our new signings can take credit for that. Luka Sukic was our best player across the course of the season. Meanwhile, Facundo Torres and Carlos Borges were some of our best. He came back, of course, from his loan at Wolves. Mansvert did well too. 30 goals from Brobby, 13 goals from Fermin, 10 from youngster Skyvink as well. Is great to see. He's progressing really nicely, and overall, everything is heading in the right direction. Facilities-wise, we are improving too, and that's really good to see, because I am being totally honest when I say in Season 1, before that Conference League final, we had an F rating, which means we were going to lose our job pretty much unless we won that match, which saved us. It gave us an extra year, and now we've really made it work. With a Dutch Cup, a Conference League, and an Eredivisie under our belt, it's now time to spend some money, improve this team, sell some players on, and hopefully make this team an actual contender now that we're in the Champions League. And in Season 3, the transfers have ramped up a bit. We've actually done £200 million worth of transfers, over 130 million in sales, and about 70 in incomings. But before we get on to that, just to let you know, I do have a second channel now, which a lot of you guys have came over and checked out, and a massive thank you for that. But for anyone that hasn't, you can find it in the description. It's called Jake Talks Chelsea, where I talk a lot about my favourite club, Chelsea, but also there will be some general Premier League content coming up. So if you like football, and not just Football Manager, come check it out. I'd really appreciate any feedback or support over there. But let's take a look at the players that we brought in to support our team this season. But of course, we have to start with the sales first, where Christian Lasmussen has left to go and join a Belgian side for 450k. A promising youngster that just never turned out very good. Anton Gay, I don't know if I've pronounced that right, Gay, I don't know, but either way, he's moved on because he again is a right back who doesn't fit our system, hasn't developed, and therefore we may as well sell him. Idaguchi moves on after only 1 season. He's gone to join Mallorca for 650,000. Only played 4 games last season, so he wanted out. I thought he'd be better than he was, but clearly not. I got that one wrong. Borna Sosa, another unfortunate casualty of the system we're playing, has left to join Al Shabab for £7.5 million. Only played 3 times last season when he was back at the club, so you could see why he'd want to leave. But now the big sales. Josep Sutalo was the first one. We have unfortunately lost him because I tried everything to keep him, rejected a few offers, and he said he'd be upset, and I still rejected the next offer, and then he kicked up a load of fuss. All the players turned on me and said we should sell him, so I did. He's gone to Al Ittihad. 55 million is a pretty good fee for a guy that was good for us, but maybe not crucial, but still, he's a big loss. He's hard to replace, and it is an unfortunate sale, really. But it's kind of the way that Ajax roll. We bring in players, we develop them, and then we sell them for huge profits to fund everything else, and Facundo Torres fell into that pile again. He has moved on to Al Hilal for 61 million, has been so good for us after that 10 million signing, 2 seasons under his belt, but then when Al Hilal come knocking with 600 grand a week of a contract on your door, he's going to want to go. He did, but we got a lot of money from it. And there was a lot of incoming, so let's run through them quickly. Firstly, a little bit of defensive cover, someone that we're going to try and develop and maybe sign in the future. Luka Vuskovic of Tottenham is in on loan. Lazar Samardzic joins on a free, having left Udinese at the end of his contract after a great year for them in Serie A, a really good signing for us. The free transfers continued with Weston McKennie joining the club. He's a brilliant player according to his attributes here, even though in real life, I didn't think too much of him when he was in the Premier League with Leeds, but you know what? Maybe that was just a bad time for him, but we've signed him on a free anyway from Juventus, who weren't using him at all. We've also managed to bring in Alan Saint-Maximin on a free after he left Saudi Arabia. His contract was up at Al Ali, where he played 2 seasons, did pretty well, but as a free agent, we can't really turn him down, and he's a great winger to bring in. Onto the permanent transfers that cost money though. Oscar Zambrano was the first, a 22-year-old Ecuadorian midfield option that we signed for 2.6 million, which I feel like is going to be an absolute bargain. Manu Silva is another bargain pickup that we've found, a 25-year-old Portuguese international at one point, who we have signed in the centre-back spot for only £3.4 million from VTSC in the Portuguese leagues. Teles Manho also signs for a really minimal fee for the player that he is. He's signed for 5.75 million from New York City FC in the MLS, where he was fantastic last year. But then the big money signings were these two. The first one is Anthony Roulat, a centre-back option that kind of comes in to replace Sutalo, who he signed for 26.5 million quid from Stuttgart, where he's been pretty good now in the Bundesliga for multiple seasons and suits that wide role quite nicely in the defence. And then we spent the Facundo Torres money, or at least half of it, on Rooney Bargi, who comes in as a brilliant option for us. He's going to play on the right, 20 years of age, a Swedish international, signs for 30 million from Copenhagen. It could rise to 32. It's a big signing really for Ajax in terms of value, but I think he's going to be more than worth it. Oh, and also another sale that I did forget to mention was Steven Bergwijn, who has moved to Al Nassr after his year on loan at Leipzig for 30 million, which is a pretty good fee for us really. So goodbye to him, we finally got rid. And here is now what our best team looks like with all our signings complete. Marcin Bulka is in goal and developing very nicely in the net. He's now Poland's international goalkeeper, with Wrench, Roulat and Hato at the back. Hato developing very nicely, now 20 years of age. Kenneth Taylor is in midfield alongside Mansverk, who had plenty of interest in the summer. Bids of upwards of 60 million coming in for him that we rejected. Sukic as well, alongside Bargi, Fermin, Saint-Maximin and Brian Brobby, with plenty of great players on the bench and in the reserves too, plenty of great youngsters. This is all looking pretty good for us. And also we had our first real good new gen player come through in a youth intake. Obviously a big focus of Ajax is the youth development of the academy, and this guy looks like he could go right to the very top. Jan Galen is his name, and he's got huge potential and already looks really good. The expectation this year is for us to cruise the league really. Looking at the odds, we are expected now to dominate in the Eredivisie, but of course this season we will be competing for the first time in the Champions League. We did actually lose the Johan Cruyff Schal at the start of the season to PSV in penalties, which is a disappointment, but it's not the biggest trophy ever, so we can forgive it. But yes, Champions League football this season, we're going to give it our best shot alongside trying to maintain the league win that we got last year. Season 3 is underway, so let's see what we can do this year round. And after plenty of matches played this year and plenty of drama too, Season 3 is now complete here at Ajax. With only 2 seasons to go, this was our first entry as manager into the Champions League. We did make it out of the league phase and made it into a knockout playoff round against RB Leipzig. At our stadium, we earned a 3-3 draw, so we then went to Germany with all to play for, but this is when we were shown there was levels to this game. Openda scored a goal very early on, and that was the start of what was eventually a 5-1 demolishing of our team. The Champions League is clearly a step up for us, especially in this tactic, playing such expansive football, so that didn't go too well. But on a domestic front, things were looking a little bit better, because we had made it to a successive Dutch Cup final. This time though, we were facing off against PSV, our rivals at the minute in the league and in the cups, and they took a 1-0 lead through Tillman, but we hit back in the 56th minute, a corner coming in, Brian Brobby rising highest and putting away the header to equalise. That then took us all the way till penalties, where they scored the first one. Samardzic then took a shot and missed from the spot straight away. We also had Rooney Bargi miss his penalty, and it meant that PSV were able to beat us. João Cancelo scoring the penalty, showing how good their team is now. So we lost the cup final to PSV, we lost the Johan Cruyff Schal to PSV, and of course we had the disappointment in the Champions League. But in the league, it was once again a battle between us and PSV Eindhoven to try and win that title. So it was typical that one of our final games during this neck-and-neck title race was against PSV themselves at our stadium though, and we took an early lead through Brobby after a goalkeeping mistake. Not Not too long afterwards, PSV tried to play it out the back. We managed to win the header, Mansverk finding Firmin in the area, who tucked it past the goalkeeper for 2. Some lovely football in the 78th minute from Hato allowed us to find Maximan in the area, who managed to slot it across, and we got our second through Brobby. And then Mansverk finished from the penalty spot to complete a 4-0 victory. And it's a good job we won too, because it was 85 points neck and neck with PSV that got us this title. They were right there with us, final not too far behind, all 3 teams having a good enough season that last year would have won the title, which shows you that we're all progressing at this point. But it was a very good year for us, 85 points on the board, the best goal difference, only 3 losses all season and 4 draws. We're looking much better now. It's just a shame that PSV and Feyenoord are actually keeping up with us, but either way, a good year and the second title under our belt in only 3 seasons. Our investment paid off on Rooney Bargi, who was our best player this season with 19 goals, 10 from Sukic, 8 from Mansverk, who is becoming one of the best players in probably world football in his position, to be honest, at this point. Carlos Borges also pretty good, Firmin with 18, Samardzic with 12. Brobby did manage to score 16 goals, even if his overall game wasn't great. Maybe there's a position there that we can improve. And as we now go into season 4, we're going to have a budget of, we don't know yet, because once again, the board are giving us this negative transfer budget where we have to sell players on before we can buy anyone, even though financially, the club's looking really good, £192 million in the balance. But as you can see in the club vision, they want to use this negative transfer business model. So we're going to have to sell players before we can buy. So let's see what business we can do in season 4. And the season 4 transfer window was another big one, around £200 million of transfers again, the majority of that like last year being sales, whilst we spend pretty little on incomings, but I think we're still improving the team. Firstly, Jakov Medic has moved on. He's been a centre-back option that we've decided to sell because he didn't play much last year. He's gone to Udinese for 700k. And at the same club, David Koloko will now play. Now, he is someone that had a lot of promise but never quite hit the heights for us, so we've moved him on too. And it's an unfortunate end as well for Julian Rykov, who was just not quite good enough for us but had outgrown just going on loan because he'd been doing pretty well but he wasn't ready for our team, so he sold him to Hertha Berlin for 3.5 million. Also leaving was one of the stars of season 1, Hilnerson, who has now moved to join Damak in Saudi Arabia for 5 million. Teles Magno also leaves after only a year, but he doubles the money that we spent on him. He's moved for 10 million, rising to 13 after a pretty underwhelming first year for us where he didn't play that much, so he wanted to go. One sell that I wasn't really planning for though was Marcin Bulka, who had a year left on his deal. I tried to offer him a new contract and he said he wanted to see it out because of the interest in him, so I thought, you know what, let's sell him and move him on before he can leave us on a free. So he's gone to join Sporting Club de Portugal, about 12 million quid for him, so that meant we needed a new goalkeeper. But not before another 3 major sales where Alan St. Maximin left the club again after 1 season. We turned a free transfer into a £27 million sale. Similar story for Weston McKennie, came in, did pretty well after signing on a free, and a year later we move him on for 36 million quid, rising potentially to 43. But it's Brian Brobby who moves for the biggest fee this summer. He's gone to Al Ittihad where he's getting 500 grand a week. He's sold for 38 million quid, rising to 40. Good luck to him. He was vital for us in season 1 and 2, but as you can see in season 3, not as important, so hopefully we won't miss him too much. And I don't think we will, because I think our incomings have been pretty good. Firstly, Marquinhos, the Brazilian winger from Arsenal, has left on a free contract from them, so we've picked him up as a free agent. Madsbek Sorensen is a centre-back option, just here to be squad depth, that we picked up again on a free this time from Danish side Midtjylland. And our final free transfer was Albert Gudmundsson, who signs from Genoa in Italy, where he's been excellent for a couple of years. He's a great player in FM based on his attributes, so I was not going to turn him down, and he can play pretty much anywhere in that forward line. Someone that has a specialist position though is Adam Karabek, who comes in as that new shadow striker in our system. The Czech 24-year-old signs for 6 million quid. He's been doing really well for Sparta Prague out in the Czech Republic, so he's a great signing for us. As is our new goalkeeper, who is Muric, the goalie of Ipswich, who spent 2 seasons with them in the Championship. After a poor year in the Prem, he did really well there, developed his game, and now we've brought him in to be our new goalkeeper for £17 million. Our new striker though is going to be Marko Milovanovic, who is a player that we've signed from Almeria in the 2nd tier of Spanish football that our scouts rated highly after some great performances there. 16 million is a lot on a release clause fee, but I think he could be a really good player. But our biggest signing was Brian Aguirre, who cost us just under 20 million. You can see I think we've done some really good business here. He was great for Boca Juniors juniors in Argentina, so I think he'll be a lovely addition on the wing for our side. So this is now what our best 11 looks like. Muric, Rulat, Wrench and Hato fill up the defence, with Taylor, Mansverk and Sukic continuing that midfield dream three that we've got there. Mansverk, I don't know how we've held on to him. He's had some huge bids come in. Bargi, Karabek and Borgs is a very good forward line, with Milovanovic hopefully going to be able to pull up the goals that Brobby was getting for us. If not, we might struggle a little bit, so fingers crossed he can do so. Season preview wise, we are now predicted to absolutely storm the league over PSV, so we're going to try and keep that up as we head into season 4. Hopefully this year, with the team we've got, we can fight against some of those big teams in Europe and start pushing a little closer to that Champions League title. And clearly our tactics and transfers are working well, because this year was the first year I think we can really say we were competing right at the top with Europe's elite, and that started in the Champions League, where we did well in the group stage, making it to a round of 16 tie, but I kind of counted us out when we got drawn against Man City, but we won 1-0 at home, and then Sukic scored here in what was eventually a 4-2 win at the Etihad. But our celebrations were soon cut short when in the quarter-final we were drew against Real Madrid. It did not get any easier for us, but they came to our stadium first, and we blew them away, Karabek making it 1-0 early on. And before it was even 10 minutes on the clock, a Rooney Bargi corner found Rulat, who headed away to Sukic, who powered home for 2. Karabek caused all kind of problems for the Real Madrid defence, and he played a ball in late on that ended up finding Taylor, who powered home for 3-0. And in the second half, we continued our good form. Hato, Taylor and Carlos Borgs linking up very nicely on the left-hand side. He then played it through to Karabek for his second of the game. But apparently beating Real Madrid 4-0 was not enough, because with 90 minutes on the clock, Albert Gudmundsson went down the right-hand side, played the ball in, found Milovanovic, who headed home for a 5-0 victory. After that, we went to the Bernabeu, where Real Madrid scored 6 goals, but we scored 3, and that was enough to qualify us for the semi-final of the UCL. But after playing Man City and Real Madrid, it wasn't getting any easier. We faced off against PSG. They had to come to the Netherlands first, and we actually got a good result. We managed to win 1-0, Fermin Lopez playing the ball to Milovanovic, who powered home for 1-0. But at the Parc des Princes, it was a little bit of a different story. They came flying out of the blocks, and within 2 minutes, Martinelli was able to play through Dembele, who scored past Muric to make it 1-1. And that man Dembele caused havoc for our defenders. We could not deal with him. He found Hakimi, back to Dembele, who found Martinelli, who poked home to give them the advantage. We didn't give up though, and with 60 minutes on the clock, we managed to create a chance, Rulat finding Albert Gudmundsson down the right-hand side, who slotted through Fermin, who made it 2-2 on the night. But in extra time, our hearts were broken. PSG came forward, Vitinha to Lee Kang in, him and Dembele on that right, doing a really good job against us. Found Xavi Simons, who scored, and that meant we did lose the tie on aggregate 3-2, but it was a really good effort from us to make the Champions League semi. We beat some big teams and proved that we were right up for it, which is strange because in the Dutch Cup we couldn't even make it past Utrecht, who beat us in the final in penalties. But for the Eredivisie, we have won the title once more. 92 points, 3 points clear of Feyenoord, who had a great season, and in most years that would win the title, but we were just too good. 75 goal difference, our best year yet by far, and it's great to see our 2 new attacking players that came in to replace Brobby have done such a good job for us in terms of goal scoring. It's all the usual names as our top performers. The real standout though was Adam Karabek, who came in his first year and scored 22 goals. We had 32 from Milovanovic as well, so it's great to see the void left by Brian Brobby has been filled up there. Gudmundsson doing well in his first season too, the new boys doing great things for us, and we go into our final transfer window, again with a negative transfer budget, so we're going to have to sell before we can do anything, because even though we've got £1 million of wages, I can't do anything until we sell players, which is unfortunate, but we're going to work with it. But now we go into season 5, our final year at the club. Things haven't been going well in real life for Ajax, but in game, we are on the brink of glory. Before I show you the transfers for this final season though, don't forget to smash the like button on the video if you have enjoyed to this point. It's the last time I can ask you, but let's check out these transfers. Heading out the club was Marquinhos, who we have sold on after only 1 season. He's gone to Al Attifaq for 14 million. He played 13 times for us last year, did pretty well, but we're going to take that kind of offer for a guy that wasn't really important to us. And Brian Aguirre has also moved on. He's moved to Al Hilal, who signed Facundo Torres from us a while ago. They now signed Brian Aguirre and give him a £1 million a week contract, which is insane for a player of his quality. He's good, but he's not that good, and we turn a massive profit on a player we signed only 1 year ago. Then coming in, I kept it pretty tame. Stanis Pedrola came in to replace them, really. He signed for 9 million quid from Sampdoria and looks to be a pretty handy option. And then I've signed a new gen player, so for anyone that continues to save on Patreon, you'll have this guy to look forward to. His name is Hugo Arboleda, and whilst he is a left back, I think he could be trained very well into that wide centre back role and suit it really nicely. He's great defensively and looks to be a great player. We picked him up from Junior in Colombia for only 1.6 million. I remember that young 16-year-old centre back I showed you from the academy earlier. He's now in the first team and looks like he should be a top level talent because already he looks like a really good centre back and could play Eredivisie football. So if he keeps this up, he could be a big player for us. But as of right now, this is what our final best 11 is going to be. Muric, Roulart, Wrench and Hato as that really good back three alongside a midfield three that know each other like the back of their hands in Taylor, Mansverk and Sukic. Hato, by the way, has developed really nicely over the years. We've then got Karabek, Bargi, Borges and Milovanovic, a really good young team in a exciting formation, scoring tons of goals. This is exactly what Ajax fans would have wanted, but of course the main thing we're here for is the Champions League. So in our final season, we're going to give it our best shot. Hopefully we'll get a bit of a luckier draw than last year. You never know though. Let's see what we can do in season 5. And this year was another dramatic year. Plenty of drama, there always is in these rebuilds. And in the Champions League, this time we got an easier draw in the round of 16, facing off against Tottenham, which qualified us for the quarter-finals. Our first real test of the tournament was Bayern Munich, who we beat 2-1 away from home in leg 1. Then in leg 2, they came to the Netherlands, and Rooney Bargi managed to find Karabek, who made it 1-0. Before a corner was played in the 60th minute from Mansverk, which found the head of Roulart, who helped us to a 4-1 victory. It was Chelsea in the semi-final next though, and they came first into the Netherlands to our stadium, and we got off to a great start after 20 minutes. Sukic finding Milovanovic, who rose highest to make it 1. Rooney Bargi then managed to slot through Milovanovic again in the 37th minute, who found Carlos Borges, who brought it down and tucked it home brilliantly to make it 2-0. And we then made it 3-0 on the night. Late into the second half, Karabek finding Rooney Bargi, who curled it home, and that meant we were now heading to a Champions League semi-final at Stamford Bridge with a 3-0 lead. But Chelsea came out flying, and after only 15 minutes on the clock, a corner found for Fana, who ended up heading it along to Colwill, who tucked it home to get one back. And that was the game really until the 70th minute, when we were currently 3-1 up. Sukic received the ball, played it out to Rooney Bargi, and he tucked it away to make it 4-1, and we thought it was done and dusted. Chelsea had different ideas though, because in the 81st minute, Nico Williams scored, before Cole Palmer received the ball in the 90th minute. Currently we're 4-2 up, but Thuram found Enzo Fernandez onto Mudryk, and he made it 4-3. But thankfully, they weren't able to get another goal. We managed to cling on despite losing 3-1 on the night. We were heading to a Champions League final. Our opponents, PSG, the team that beat us in the semi-final last year and crushed our hopes of winning it, but this year we came back for revenge, and in the 57th minute, Karabek scored to put us 1-0 up. And it looked like the Champions League might be ours until the 78th minute, when Eze Abde got down the right-hand side for PSG, found Varela, who ended up bringing it down really nicely and scored past Muric. And it looked like the game was going to go to extra time again, where last time we lost, but this time round Karabek took the game by the scruff of its neck, finding Stanis Pedrola, who played to Milovanovic, who scored, and that meant we had done it. We had won the UCL in our 5th and final season. It's been a few rebuilds since we've actually got the success that I wanted to get. Sometimes in the last year it doesn't quite work, but this year we have finally done it. And on top of that, we won the League 2, 92 points yet again, 2 losses and 2 draws across the course of a season, a huge gap between us and anyone else. It was a brilliant year for us, and we asserted our dominance far more than we have in previous seasons. We were so good in all competitions, so many players chipping in, 39 goals from Milovanovic, 21 from Karabek, 20 from Bargi, 13 from Sukic, 15 from Taylor, Borges as well getting 13 goals, everyone scoring goals, and our facilities are pretty much maxed out. The reputation has gone up, the club vision they're happy with, the finances, there's £300 million in the balance. We've done all of this at pretty much a transfer negative every single time. The dev centre is producing lots of good players, and if you have a look now as well, if we go to club background, a legend of the club is apparently Rooney Bargi, considered more of a legend than Johan Cruyff, so take that as you will. Carlos Borges also up there, Kenneth Taylor as well. Clearly they really like these players at the club, but that is great to see. Our rebuild with Ajax is complete, far better than what they're doing in real life, but let me know who you want to see next, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.